Hello, this is Stan Lubeck. Welcome to Coaching Pit Stop. When leaders improve, everyone benefits. With the results of COVID and, even the work from home and culture, people are hungry for relationships, for community. We're built for community. There has never been a better time to build on this interest and introduce people to the life-changing environment of small group ministry within the local church. So what are the 6 absolutes of small group ministry? Number 1, every member, every Christ follower is a minister. Minister just means a servant, someone who cares about others and wants to serve others. Jesus commanded us to make disciples of Christ to the ends of the earth. He modeled that value by investing his life in a few chosen men who would carry on long after Jesus left earth physically. Small group ministry reflects a commitment to disciple every person that God entrusts to our care. Discipleship is the genetic code of what we do as a church, not because we think it's a good idea, but because it's what God desires for his church. Making disciples, Christ followers, is not optional, but foundational for building a strong and fruitful ministry. Therefore, we need to remove any obstacles that would compete with disciple-making ministries. God is far more concerned with the character of his people than he is with their comfort. Becoming more like Jesus is far more important than making disciples comfortable as consumers of church programs. James 1:2-4 reminds us of this when it says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." Principle number 2 is that we need to equip every member. This is what Ephesians 4:11-13 model for us, in which the pastor equips the members to do the work of ministry. Ephesians 4:11-13 says, "He gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ." So it is not the pastor, but the members who are doing the work of ministry. This means that every member is a minister, a servant, reporting for duty in obedience to the Lord Jesus Christ. Our philosophy of ministry must be one of equipping and empowering God's people for ministry. It is not enough for the pastors to be good ministers. Our pastors must be enabling others to be effective ministers. This means that pastors must be able to relinquish the ministry to church leaders. And each pastor's role is to train those leaders to be skilled as ministers. It is obviously easier in the short term to just, quote, "do it yourself," unquote. However, no multiplication of ministry will happen if pastors maintain this attitude. Pastors rob people of the blessing of ministry when they fail to equip others. If the Ephesians 4 attitude is not prevalent in our philosophy of ministry, we will always tend to control the small group ministry and never really let it have a life of its own where it can multiply beyond what any of us could ever take credit for. I love what Larry Osborne says about the priesthood of the believer. He says, all of the missionaries and pastors in China were expelled or imprisoned soon after the rise of communism. Meanwhile, the church in Western Europe enjoyed complete freedom of religion and a highly educated and trained professional clergy. At first glance, that seems like a great spiritual tragedy for China and a wonderful blessing for Western Europe. But time proved this to be the exact opposite. The removal of the professional ministry class didn't destroy the church in China. It unleashed the latent and previously suppressed power of the laity, which led to the explosive growth despite terrible persecution and the need to go underground. Meanwhile, the church in Europe suffered deep decline as everyone sat back and waited for the professionals to do the work of ministry. Now, this is incredibly important. The pastor's job is to administer so that the people can minister. Even if the pastor gets removed, like in China, the people had been equipped to know how to disciple people, to make disciples who would make disciples. So to administer is to organize the ministry to create a healthy spiritual environment where people grow in the faith and are equipped and empowered to minister in their world and their sphere of influence. It is an environment where there are next steps for everyone who desires to grow in the faith while developing ministry skills. So the priesthood of the believer means that every Christ follower is a minister in God's kingdom. Ministry is not limited to the professional clergy like we see so often in the Catholic Church. The pastor's job is to equip and empower the people to minister. 1 Peter 2:9 speaks of this. But you, talking to all believers, you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Okay, principle number 3, tiered levels of leaders. When Moses was weary in leading God's people in the wilderness, Jethro, his father-in-law, suggested that he set up tiered levels of leadership. This solution was considered good for Moses and good for the people. Moses recruited qualified leaders of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Did you see that? Each tier. Level 1 is those that lead 10 people. Level 2 is those that lead 50 people. Level 3 is those that lead hundreds, and level 4 is those that lead thousands. So this tiered level of leaders meant that Moses' burden was shared. It meant that he could be at home with his wife and children. And it was probably his wife that told her father to talk to Moses about this in the first place, since Moses probably wasn't home and the kids never saw him, because he was leading a couple million people. So as Moses developed a tiered leadership environment, the small problems could be dealt with by the leaders of tens, and only the most important decisions were left for Moses. We would be wise to follow Moses' example in the small group ministry by delegating responsibilities to others in a tiered leadership environment. So consider this. For every 5 small group leaders, those that are leading 10 people, there is a section leader who is developing those 5 small group leaders as they shepherd all 50 people. For every 5 section leaders, there is a zone pastor who is equipping them to shepherd all 250 people. For every 5 zone pastors, there is a district pastor with responsibility for 1,250 people. This idea of tiered leadership levels is easily overlooked. However, it is central to the longevity and effectiveness of small group ministry. It is through this tiered leadership structure that high touch and high accountability can be maintained, which is essential for effective small groups. And by the way, it also makes it super easy to start new churches when you have zone pastors and district pastors who are being equipped and learning how to do ministry and lead teams. Ultimately, the goal is for everyone to be cared for by someone, and no one cares for more than about 10 people. This is called a healthy span of care. Okay, principle number 4, clear-cut responsibilities and expectations. The days of having volunteers in the church burn out because we give them too many responsibilities should be over. One of the main things that will frustrate leaders is unclear responsibilities and expectations. We must have sufficient foresight into the expectations and responsibilities for each leadership position. We will have job descriptions and time requirements so that each level of leader knows what they're committing to. People need to be able to count the cost before they make a commitment. T.J. Addington has some great insights here. He says that the single most important thing a leader does is provide maximum clarity to those they lead about what is important to the organization and how the organization is going to accomplish its mission. Achieving clarity is the most powerful accelerator towards ministry results and organizational alignment. There are 4 areas where maximum clarity is critical. The first is mission. What are we ultimately committed to accomplishing? Secondly is guiding principles. How are we committed to operating? How are we going to treat each other as a team as we carry out this mission? Thirdly, central ministry focus. What we need to be doing day in and day out to accomplish our mission. Inch by inch, everything's a cinch. Yard by yard, everything's hard. So how do we make it little small steps or half steps that keep us moving in the same direction? And then fourthly, preferred culture, the ethos we need to have to accomplish the first three areas. All right, principle number 5, initial training. The last thing you want is the wrong people to get into leadership. It's harder to get them out of their leadership position than it is to get them into the position. And who is it that causes division in the church? It's those leaders who got into positions of leadership that shouldn't ever have been invited in the first place. So to start new small groups, the new leaders must complete initial training that covers the vision and philosophy of ministry. Launching new groups with ill-prepared leaders is like launching misguided missiles. It doesn't end well. Somebody's going to get hurt. This initial training will be enough for the new leader to feel they have received a clear orientation to the ministry's vision and values. There will be ongoing leaders' meetings for further equipping, so this first training is designed to communicate God's never-changing principles for doing God's work God's way. During initial training, potential small group leaders will complete their applications and undergo background checks. Once a potential leader has completed the initial training and the application has been approved, they are eligible to become small group leaders and join the leadership team. All right, principle number 6, ongoing team equipping. Pastors' ongoing support and care for leaders is essential for a healthy ministry. With continual training and coordination as the ministry expands, small group ministry coaches, leaders of leaders, will be equipped to train and empower the small group leaders. We cannot expect our leaders to succeed unless we equip them with the tools and resources they need to flourish in ministry. The tendency will be to minimize this area or conduct it infrequently. Consistent, effective, well-done training will generate momentum in and of itself, leading to an esprit de corps environment that encourages others to long to become small group leaders. This is the secret sauce of an ever-expanding small group ministry, meeting with the leaders regularly and building a solid leadership team. Well, that's it for today. God's best to you. Bye for now.